This video, I'm going to be comparing the Omen franchise to the Mamma Mia franchise. The reason for this is part one of this series, I compared Omen to RoboCop, Omen 1. I compared Mamma Mia to Mulan, Mamma Mia 1. So now I'm going to compare these two franchises. I definitely have more nostalgia for Mamma Mia. Songs from the band ABBA are played in these movies. I definitely know ABBA, that's for sure. I actually have an ABBA CD. As a matter of fact, I've known about this band's songs for a long time, for years, before I ever saw either of the Mamma Mia movies, actually. I really enjoy both these movies. I don't understand why the first film isn't fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. I think it should be. I'm glad that Mamma Mia 2 is. I watched the first Omen movie for the first time within the past few years. I actually watched it with a friend of mine, but I felt like for some reason I was dozing off a bit, so I decided to rewatch it to make sure I saw it and was paying attention 100% of the time and wasn't dozing off at any point. Then after that, I watched Omen 2, and then I saw the first Omen in theaters with two friends of mine earlier on this year. I have not watched Omen 3, The Final Conflict, Omen 4, The Quickening, the cheap direct-to-video version of Omen, or the Omen remake. Now, when it comes to the highest score for each franchise, in the case of Mamma Mia, the sequel has an 80%. Then when you look at Omen, the original classic from Richard Donner has an 85%. When you look at lowest score, the original Mamma Mia only has a 55%. That's too low. When you look at Omen, the remake, actually, the fourth film, Omen 4, The Quickening, only has a 17%. When you look at average score for each franchise, with Mamma Mia, you have an average of 67. With Omen, you have an average of 48. Thus far, Mamma Mia has won 2 of the rounds, while Omen has won 1 of them. Then when you look at gap between lowest and highest score, in the case of Mamma Mia, you got a gap of 25%. With Omen, you got a gap of 68%. So Mamma Mia has won 3 of the rounds so far, thus it will be winning no matter what. And when it comes to my personal opinion, I have to choose Mamma Mia. Of course, the original Omen from Richard Donner is one of the great religious horror films. It has a great amount of suspense, and it has a lot of suspense in it because you're wondering the whole time, is this little 5-year-old kid, Damien, actually the Antichrist or not? There's intrigue, and also this idea, I think, is just inherently unnerving and scary. Looking at the question of, if you were a parent, what would you do if you learned that your child might be the Antichrist? What would it take for you to actually believe that? And would you be willing to kill your own child that you've spent 5 years with if you knew your child was actually pure evil? That's an interesting question. Also, the visuals here, I think, hold up rather well. I like the score, the story is engaging, the acting is really good. Then when it comes to Omen 2, I think this is a decent follow-up to the original film. Not quite as good as the original film, because you watch it and you're feeling that this one lacks the suspense that was in the first film, because at this point, we as the audience know that Damien's the Antichrist already, and throughout the course of Omen 2, Damien actually embraces who he really is. We're seeing him now as a 12-year-old kid who has, of course, more conscience than he did as a 5-year-old. So he's now starting to realize for himself that I am the Antichrist, and we see him embrace that, which is scary in its own way, but you don't have that intrigue that you had in the first film. But Omen 2 does do a good job of delivering more of those accidental deaths that you want in an Omen film. I think the acting is still pretty good. I think visually the movie holds up. When you look at Omen 3, The Final Conflict, this film is really frustrating, to be honest, because I think that ultimately it does end in the right way, and I think the filmmakers deserve credit for that. I think it's good to have these 3 films end on that note of Jesus Christ returns and defeats the Antichrist. That's exactly the way you want a story like this to end. You want to see good triumph over evil. You want to see God triumph over the Antichrist. But the problem is that the film Omen Free does not build up to that final note of victory. So it's not as satisfying as it should be because the film did not show us the forces of good that are fighting against evil. If it had done that, then the film would have been better, would have been a better wrap up to this trilogy. It's sad because I think the idea that the Antichrist is desperately trying to do whatever he can to prevent the return of Jesus Christ because he knows Jesus is the only one who can defeat me, that makes sense. It's set up right at the beginning of the film that Damien learns this, and thus he's scared, and so is doing everything he can to prevent the return of Jesus Christ. But then you're just watching the cult that's surrounding the Antichrist, along with Damien himself doing terrible things throughout the runtime, until you get to the end where you do have the victory happen, but it doesn't hit as hard as it should. Then when you look at Omen 4, The Quickening, this is just a cheap rehash of earlier Omen films, just with a girl as the Antichrist rather than a boy. You have that gender swap, but other than that, it's just more of the same, but a cheaper version of it. And then you look at the Omen remake, and this is a professionally made movie that's slick. You see where the money went, but the problem is that it's not an improvement compared to the original classic from Richard Donner. It's like a cover band doing a great rendition of a different band's song. So why would you ever watch the Omen remake when you can just watch the original that's superior? So the remake never justifies its own existence. So it's just a pointless, beat for beat, shot for shot remake of a classic that doesn't need to exist. And then you look at the first Omen, and I think this is actually a really good prequel. I think this film does a good job of actually fleshing out the lore and mythology of Omen. It actually explores things that we as the audience were wondering about, so it does not fall into that classic prequel trap of answering questions I was not asking. When I think about like Prometheus and Covenant, I think those are great examples of prequel films that are answering questions I was never asking and providing answers that I do not want. When I think about Amazing Spider-Man, a way that those films go into Peter's parents, you're answering questions I was never asking. This is not what I want because Peter already has his Aunt May and Uncle Ben, so why do we need to go into his parents? But the first Omen, it actually serves as a good complement to the original film. I like that it actually doubles down on some of the weirder aspects of the Omen lore, but I think that both Mamma Mia 1 and 2 are very good. I really have a good time. I enjoyed both of them. I like the story in each case. The first film is about this girl named Sophie who's about to get married. Because of that, she wants her father to be able to walk her down the aisle. So she's trying to figure out which one of these three guys that my mom knew back in the day is actually my dad. And then the second film is about Sophie, this guy opening up a hotel. At this point, Sophie's mother, Donna, has passed. Sophie really wants to build the hotel because she knows this is what Donna loved. If we can get the hotel completed, that's how I will honor her memory. I think that the acting in both was quite good. I really like the songs here. So overall, I easily would say that Mamma Mia is just the more consistent franchise. I mean, maybe the original... Yeah, I would definitely say the original Omen from Richard Donner is better done than either of the two Mamma Mia films. It's a classic, but outside of that, the quality varies a lot. I'll wrap things up for this video.